All right. Okay, so hello everybody. We're going to go ahead and transition from our break into our next session. It's actually our keynote session, and Valentina Escudero. Did I pronounce it correctly? Okay, great. She will be going over how to break into VC, and I will just give her a brief introduction about herself. So, Valentina is on the investment team at M12, where she supports investments in the autonomous systems and DevOps spaces. Previously, she worked in Microsoft's business development organization as an analyst and M365 and Xbox. So, prior to coming to Microsoft, Valentina held various internships at Bain & Co., PwC, and Platt Labs. And she's a graduate of UPenn and holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy, politics, and economics. And she also loves spending time outdoors, reading and writing. So yeah, Valentina, you can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for the introduction. Let me make sure that this is shareable. Can you guys see that?
Oh yeah, I can see it.
Here. Um, Go, and we're just gonna. Okay, so thank you again so much for the introduction. So I'm Valentina. Great to meet everyone. Today I'm just going to be talking a little bit more about what breaking into VC has been like for me, and sort of share more about my career. There's going to be time for questions at the end. And I have a tiny quiz. So yeah, let's dive in. So as I walk you through the sort of like snapshot of my journey, you'll notice it's like a blend of diverse experiences and sort of backgrounds. My professional journey sort of took an exciting turn when I got the opportunity to intern at the Xbox team. Um, Before Microsoft, I also did have the privilege of working at some of the top consulting firms, like Sneha mentioned, Bain & Co., PwC Strategy Consulting Group. They were pretty instrumental in sort of like honing my problem-solving skills. Yeah, then I graduated with an interdisciplinary degree, kind of like alludes to the big picture sort of thinking that I enjoy the most. So after Penn, really the allure of technology is what brought me back to Microsoft. So this time I was focusing on M365 and thinking about integrating sort of tech solutions with business strategies. And I began investing at M12 shortly after. So at M12, I've had the chance to sort of delve into the world of like investing, exploring startups, and working with brilliant founders that have the potential to sort of like revolutionize industries. So I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah. So what is venture capital? I like to think that it's not just about the money, of course, but also sort of about the expertise, mentorship, and sort of opening doors to new opportunities and innovative companies, especially in the tech world, sort of like require the significant capital before they generate revenue or before even like a product is like fully realized sometimes. So traditional banks, for instance, like sort of see these ventures as too risky, and that's where VCs sort of step in. It's like this very interesting niche carved out in like private equity. So VCs step in, take that risk in exchange for equity, hoping that the company sort of makes it big. And, to wrap it up, I sort of like think of venture capital as like the sort of like fuel behind so many of the disruptive like innovations and groundbreaking companies that we see today. It's a blend of risk, foresight, and sort of like pursuit of groundbreaking potential, like truly disruptive technology. Um, but yeah, so what we see is like in VC, there's like a sort of like different like stages, and they kind of it feels a little bit like growing a plant. You have like seed stage and like early stage expansion, late mezzanine. So I'm gonna walk us through that a little bit through each of these 5 stages. Seed stage and venture capital is all about potential. So this is where VCs sort of invest in a business idea even before there's like a full-fledged product often. It's high risk, and the aim here is to help founders sort of like develop a prototype, conduct some market research, and like refine their business model. So the funding amount here is like typically smaller, varies like, from year to year, and often sourced from angel investors, incubators, or VCs that specifically focus on like pre-seed seed. Um, after a startup has a sort of like working model and some initial traction, it kind of enters this like early stage. So the funding rounds here are typically like Series A and Series B is what they're referred to. And those are about building a strong foundation. So this can involve like scaling the product, expanding the team, or sort of like entering new markets. Investors at this stage are looking for product market fit and a clear path to what they call like scalability. So the expansion stage is where we go next, and that's sort of Series C and beyond. So once a startup has proven its viability and starts showing that significant growth, it's time to expand. So this is, kind of like the plant branching out, reaching for more sunlight. And in the expansion stage, usually from Series C onwards, the focus shifts. It's like scaling, but even more dramatically. So this might mean global expansion, diversifying product lines, or substantial marketing pushes, maybe new revenue streams. This is, where the company really starts being like exponentially growth mode. So funding here typically supports aggressive growth plans, and the amount raised tends to be much, much larger. Late stage is sort of like typically a well-established player with a considerable market presence. So funding is often directed towards like further entrenching the market position. So making the product even more solidly like positioned in the market, fending off competitors, or pursuing like larger scale acquisitions. So investors here are typically larger institutional entities like mega funds, for instance, banks, like looking for a safer bet compared to like the sort of high risk nature of seed or early stage investments, like before the company oftentimes even has like product market fit. Sometimes it's just, a couple founders and an idea type thing. Then finally, like the mezzanine stage, the plant is already mature, and at this point it might be time to like reap the fruits. So this is typically like the pre-IPO, like this is the final phase before like a liquidity event such as an IPO or a major acquisition. So this kind of financing often takes the form of like a convertible note, which then turns into like equity after the liquidity event. And it's kind of a bridge, this stage, between sort of the traditional VC funding and the public market or sort of like acquisition. So those are like just the overall stages of venture capital funding. The process itself, so this has been kind of like what I've been learning for the past year and a half since I've been in my role as an investor at M12. So sourcing is kind of like the phase where VCs sort of like pan for potential startups to invest in. So this is about sort of like proactively hunting for opportunities, networking, attending industry events, and sort of forging strong relationships with incubators, accelerators, and entrepreneurial hubs. In SF, where I'm based currently, that could be like Shack 15 or going to demos, going to hackathons. And the aim here is really to uncover startups that align with the VC's like strategy, sort of our ethos and like vision for growth. So given the amount, there's a sheer amount of startups out there, especially right now with like this sort of like Cambrian explosion of AI startups, the sourcing phase is really crucial in like really funneling down to like the most promising candidates, which can typically, be a bit of a challenge. So at a CVC, one of the benefits is like sort of like our strategic lens and like being attached to Microsoft, where we do also get a lot of inbound to sift through as well. And yeah, it's not about really randomly picking companies to invest in. It's not like spray and pray type of game. So VCs typically undergo like a rigorous due diligence process. And this involves sort of like understanding the market size, the product or like services like potential, the business model, the team's strength, and so much more. Especially like in the early stages, you're really betting on the founder and team and trusting that they are the right people to handle this problem. Capital deployment and management. So that's kind of like the final deal. So here we're like finalizing the deal, we're determining the terms, like what often comes out of this phase is like a term sheet and sort of like transferring funds. But it doesn't really end with a check. Usually VCs take on an active role in sort of guiding the company with either like a seat on the board or in many cases like a board observer as well. So this is a sort of like symbiotic relationship where both the VC and the startup are working together towards growth, success, and obviously like ultimately a profitable exit. But, I really want to emphasize here that like what the investment process looks like is beyond the financial returns. Venture capital has like a broader impact. So the goal is to fuel innovation, job creation, and technological advancement. Some of today's tech giants, for instance, Apple, Google, or even like the early days of Microsoft, did benefit from VC funding. So it's kind of crazy to see like the sort of impact that this sort of niche in private equity can have on the space. Yeah, so moving on, essential skills for a VC. This is something I've really been honing in on over the past year and a half that I've been in my role. So at the heart of every great VC is honestly like an undying love for startups. Because they're often high risk, high reward environments full of uncertainties. A VC's genuine enthusiasm for the sort of like entrepreneurial journey means that they can really like relate to founders, understand their challenges, and cheer them on, not just as an investor, but a true partner and really a cheerleader oftentimes. But yeah, your heart has to be in it. You have to be like genuinely interested in startups, the founders, and like really growing them and like aligning those missions and finding those like synergies in order to really get the best out of this, because this is going to be a long-term relationship. Oftentimes, it can be between 5 or 10 years before an investment really pans out. So it's a really long-lasting relationship that you're building when you're investing in a team. It's so much more than the capital, it's time, resources, and everything that goes with it. So there needs to be a lot of trust, and there needs to be, true like love for the game. Like no VC should be in it, just for, I don't know, the potential for return on investment, because, there's other ways to make quick money that don't involve such a heavy emotional investment as well. So yeah, next we have like sort of like being an overperformer. So what does that mean? In venture capital particularly. So VC is a pretty competitive field. The best VCs often go the extra mile in their diligence, their networking, and honestly, their support. So they're always hungry for more knowledge, connections, and opportunities. I feel like I spend so much of my time reading, just like reading right now because of AI, a lot of research papers, at least 3 research papers a week, reading so many, newsletters and blogs and forums, and just like staying like constantly up to date on like what are the latest trends and who are the people leading these trends, and this involves a lot of like internet sleuthing and like looking through not just like LinkedIn, but also like Twitter, and really being plugged in and going to events in person, SF being like one of these like major hubs of innovation in tech where a lot of entrepreneurs and founders and funders kind of like come together in real life to discuss ideas and sort of make things happen. So the sort of like drive to outperform others really ensures that you have like the best investment opportunities and that you're there at the right time to sort of like seize them. Going on to investment skills. So crucial to the sort of like VC role are the skills that can honestly range from like either financial analysis to market predictions, risk assessment, and like portfolio management. So all of these things are kind of things that you hone in on during the job. Like it's really hard to just take a course on this, for instance. So a sharp VC can really discern sort of like the goal here between like a passing trend and a sort of like sustainable business model. So passing trends, there's been a lot of that in the past, sort of like ebbs and flows, like a lot of like bubbles, .com bubble, Web3 and crypto during its time. So some of these things have stayed with us. A lot of like, the companies out of the .com bubble did stay with us, but that's because they had sustainable business models and really novel ideas and founders who could really like take this to the next level. So part of being a VC is being able to like spot this and really ensure that your investments have the best shot at yielding significant returns. A lot of that also depends on the market and really staying up to date. So yeah, so continuing, venture capitalists honestly need to wear many hats. So that's where operational ability comes in. So that is really essential. And really what this skill means is that a VC can step in and offer guidance on business operations, sales strategy, or even like product development when a startup might need it. So, being able to wear that sort of hat during a portfolio company's growth trajectory is like pretty crucial because they're relying on you for feedback and you're relying on them as well. So it's this like constant iterative motion. Yeah, so it's honestly like having a mentor with like hands-on experience that's like ready to guide you through like your growing pains as a startup. And last but not least, so corporate law understanding, the sort of like intricacies of investments and like equity distribution and knowing about like M&A and like the sort of like steep legal nuances, it can kind of be a lot to handle at some points. So really having a strong grasp of like corporate law really ensures that all the dealings are above board and that both the VC and the startup are protected from potential legal pitfalls. So yeah, overall, in essence, a standout VC is a blend of like a passionate cheerleader, a keen-eyed investor, and a sort of knowledgeable mentor and a diligent legal navigator on top of all of that. So the role kind of goes beyond mere investment. It's being a partner in the truest sense, really fostering growth and innovation in the entrepreneurial landscape, fueled by like a burning passion for this. Just going over some of like the sort of like job titles now in venture capital and like giving sort of some clarity on this. So let's start from the bottom. Analysts are typically the newest entrants at a firm. So their primary responsibilities are kind of around like market research and like sourcing, assisting with due diligence, and often like diving deep into spreadsheets, analyzing financial metrics, and building a sort of foundational understanding of the VC landscape. So it's often analysts that, either analysts or like associates that write blogs that, get published on LinkedIn. And, we see those famous market maps all over the place later on. Associates kind of come in after a few years of experience. So usually it's like a background in investment banking, consulting, even startups, could be any of this sort of like mix. So their role involves sort of like deeper engagement in due diligence and evaluating investment opportunities and sort of building relationships with these entrepreneurs and stakeholders, as well as managing some of the analysts. Principal, like that mid-level role, or often referred to also as vice president level. So professionals at this stage already have had a sort of significant hand in deal making. They source deals, they lead investment evaluations, and they often represent the firm on the boards of portfolio companies. So they get some more responsibility there, some more hands-on interaction with the actual portfolio company beyond just like market mapping and like financial analysis and due diligence. So partners, or often referred to general partners, these are like the decision makers. So these are the individuals that have like the most significant say in where the firm's funds are allocated. So usually they have a vast experience, a broad network, and are deeply involved in typically like fundraising. In the case of a CVC like Microsoft, for instance, M12, we have a sole LP, which is Microsoft, but broadly in the VC ecosystem, this is how it works. Like GPs are involved in that fundraising process and setting that firm's direction, as well as mentoring the portfolio companies. They have very deep relationships with the startup founders, and that they add really the most value to what makes a VC fund a good fund. Same goes for the sort of like managing director. They're deeply, deeply involved in fundraising, setting that direction, and mentoring, as well as handling like the management, the operations side of the house, and really aligning the investors with like the portfolio development and portfolio support side of the fund. So scouts, this is not listed here, but I feel like it's a common role as well. Basically, VC scouts, it's kind of fascinating. They're often kind of like individuals external to the VC core team, but we see them, for instance, at funds like Lightspeed or Sequoia, where they have like a sort of set of individuals that are great at like spotting early stage promising startups. And the way that they work is like they sort of like operate in the shadows and like really extend the reach of a VC firm, and are really particularly helpful in like grassroots level scouting and like tapping into networks of regions that like the main fund might not have immediate access to. So it's pretty cool. Finally, when it comes to networking in venture capital, there's really a couple of ways that you can do it. So moving to SF for me was a pretty big deal because it gave me the ability to really attend industry events and conferences and engage with these sort of experts, influencers, and really participate in like online conversations, particularly on Twitter or on LinkedIn. Part of that is also using these forms of social media strategically. So, for instance, using LinkedIn to cold outreach, connect, engage in relevant conversations on the platform. Very often, VCs just cold outreach to each other, share notes, have these sort of like quarterly syncs where we share the signals that we're seeing in the ecosystem, share deal flow that's relevant, and really building that relationship in person and also virtually is super key to making successful investments. So part of that is also joining professional groups and associations. So the NVCA, the National Venture Capital Association, is probably the biggest and most well-known one. That is a great channel for networking opportunities, but there's also smaller groups, regionally. I'm in a group as well, a WhatsApp group here in the Bay Area that's, pretty helpful. And we have networking events together and social events as well. So it's a great way to really build your network. Warm up introductions, that also is super helpful. So leveraging your existing connections in the ecosystem to get into the spaces that really interest you. And then finally, sort of identifying, target VCs. So there's the more direct way of researching firms and the individuals and partners that are sort of relevant, given your particular stage goals and objectives as an individual VC or from your own fund. Right. And now for the end of my presentation, I thought it would be fun to have a little quiz. So if you're, watching from home or not sure if they have access to the chat, but if you want to go ahead and say what you voted for, but basically thought it would be fun to wrap it up this way. So in the VC process, which stage involves a comprehensive assessment of business models, financial metrics, and market potential, and the founding team's capability? I'll give you guys a couple seconds before I say the answer. Okay, the answer is due diligence. It's B. And then second, which skill is essential for a VC to get to know the founders and really and really understand the nuances of a startup journey and serve as an authentic champion? I'll give you guys a couple seconds to answer. All right, and the answer is C. You need to have passion. That is the essential skill to deeply relate to the founders and really serve as an authentic champion. You really got to have that passion. So that is what I wanted to end with. Thank you all so much for joining this chat. And if there are any questions I can answer, as well as any questions in the chat, happy to answer that.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, Valentina. And I kind of like the little mini quiz you made. That was cute. And I think I'm not sure if there's any questions, but I think that would be about it. But yeah, thank you so much for being the keynote speaker as well. And I think I learned a lot from the VC presentation you made.
Yeah, happy to connect offline with anyone as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we can send out information as well. Mhm. Wait, and Hina, are you also going to do a keynote?
Yeah, I can do a keynote.
Okay. Then yeah, I can give you also a brief introduction as well. Um, yeah, so then I think we also have another keynote speaker, Hina Dixit, and she's a partner at M12, which is Microsoft's venture fund. So yeah, you can go ahead and start when you want.
Hello, everyone. This is Hina Dixit. I am a partner at M12, which is Microsoft's venture fund. Prior to that, I used to lead AI investments at Samsung Next, where I invest in companies like Stability AI, Mosaic ML, and around 12 more companies in AI, infrastructure, fintech, as well as blockchain. So before that, I was at Apple, where I led several key projects, including iCloud accounts, security, AI, Xcode, infrastructure in general, and did a lot of cross organization work as well while my time there for around 8 years. Today, I'm going to talk about women in leadership and a little bit about how we can shape our career in early ages to, prepare ourselves better for leadership roles. So let's start with it. So first of all, I want to bring in some stats as an introduction. Currently, women representation in US workforce is around 58.4%, but we only hold 35% of the senior leadership roles at the moment, which is not a great number, right? And at the same time, it's not really equal. Also, companies with women executives are known to perform at least 30% better than other companies with male leadership. Um, it's also known that there are around 10.5% of Fortune 500 CEOs who are women, and less than 1% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women of color, which is really, really, unequal and uneven number. As of 2022, women represent only 8.6% of all the venture capitalists in the US, and only 8% are firm partners, and 7% of board seats at venture capital firms are allocated to women. That's not a great number either, right? So we see, as we are moving towards the more higher levels of these roles, more higher level of these key positions, we see less and less representation of women, and specifically women of color. I think it's really important that we start preparing and we start in building some of these key characteristics right from the beginning, before even we start our corporate journey, to make ourselves more successful in these leadership roles and help us through this corporate ladder. Now, what are some of the challenges in this leadership? Why does this happen? Why is there so much, uneven distribution of women leaders in our current corporate ladder? And the reason is discrimination in general. So often, there is basically unconscious bias and gender discrimination that happens in these big organizations, corporate, and not even these big organizations, even at a very lower level. So I think it's really essential to call out if something like that is happening with somebody or yourself, and to be even aware of it. It's more likely that a particular work or a task or project, if a woman does it, it's not thought of as utmost important project, whereas some guy who comes in and tries to do it, it's thought of okay, that must be the it project by default. So it seems like when women undertake challenges, they are really not given enough credit, whereas when men undertake the same challenges, they are given a lot more credit than they deserve. Then there are limited career advancement opportunities which are available currently to women, and women face a lot of discrimination when moving towards these bigger roles, and even at entry level, it's often preferred unconsciously people tend to somehow or form stronger bonds with their male counterparts than female counterparts, somehow, and that can become a particular challenge in getting these women into the leadership ladder as well. So usually there is also lack of recognition and companies' commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion of female leadership. And at times, the women may deserve a lot of recognition, but often they are not given enough credit for it. Rather, they are villainified for the changes they made. If they are too bossy, if they are trying to put some priorities in the organization, or kind of emphasize on certain goals for the organization collectively, they are usually villainified in the back. So it's something that is very cultural, and I think it needs to change right from the beginning. Even when you guys are in high school, it's important to have that kind of awareness about these issues, so that you can call out and you can establish a better cultural fit in general for women. then usually like women are paid way lesser than men in most of these roles. I don't have concrete numbers, but it's a very well known fact. If you just Google it, you'll see like, it's usually like way lesser than men. And moreover, like, women in general suffer from higher chronic stress and exhaustion rates. We cannot blame our hormone changes, the different like issues that we are born with, often because we are women's side, and the monthly like issues that we go through because of our biological disadvantage, that kind of like makes this path much more harder for us. So I think like it's also important to focus on the well-being and being aware of like your entire body, and in general taking good care of yourself. That will enable you to like understand your mood changes, mood swings. You'll be able to perform better in the meetings, resolve better conflicts in any way, and also like behave very well with other people in general, and build stronger team relationships. So and then like most women tend to have imposter syndrome. Women are often very good in whatever they try to do, and they are usually like very logical and reasonable, but oftentimes they do not give themselves enough credit for like doing the right thing, or they might not feel confident enough in asking the right questions during a meeting, right? Or not raise their concern when they really need to, and when even when they are right, they might think, oh, this might not be of importance. There is a lot of self-doubt and there is a lot of struggle in trusting themselves, like when it comes to going through these like different meetings as well as like different talks. There's a lot of doubts and self-concerns and self-doubt. So I think we women, we need to address that right from very beginning of our like career, and kind of change our mental attitude and change how we behave and perceive ourselves in front of others. And I think doing some like confidence related tricks will help us like be better in these things. Now, making your way towards a leadership role. So we must seek opportunities to work in different roles, departments, or industries to broaden our experience. I think like even when someone is very young, they're not too young to do anything unique in the world or make an impact. You're never too young for making an impact in the world. The change starts at a very young age. I'll share my own personal story. So when I was only 8 years old, I started working at my parents' business, and it was a small public call office. And that time, like people never used to have like phone in their homes. They used to like go to a particular place where they used to make phone calls, and I used to be the operator. And right from when I was 8 years old, I used to like work there after 5 p.m. for a few hours and help out my parents in general. And I mean, at that time maybe I didn't like it, but actually honestly like I used to like it. But at the same time, it might have seemed insignificant to me like at that time, but now if I look back, I see like I developed so many good skills while doing that job. And I developed like skills to resolve conflicts. I developed skills to like interact with people. My communication became better. I knew how to like be better in like operational elements of a business. I understood, okay, what does like accounting means, what does like marketing means, how do I take notes of like such accounts, or if a call, or like supply chain in general, like how do I make accounts of like shifts that people are taking in as a PCO operator, right? Like I used to manage them as well. I used to manage like their hours as well. So I think like I learned a lot of management skills as well, like during that role. So I feel like you're never too young to make an impact in the world. It can be a very smallest of role, but don't think of it as a burden. I think if you are given an opportunity, if you like something, go ahead, like, make something out of it, learn something through it. So that is very important. And now, like, going back to three very key pillars of leadership roles and what is needed to be there. First of all, you must learn how to lead through influence. And leading through influence does not mean that you have to be at a position of authority. It essentially means that you need to like, always show your integrity and ethical behavior. And you have to be very competent in anything that you do. Or whatever task that you undertake must be done with utmost perfection. right? And mistakes will happen. Please be like very forgiving to yourself. When you start in something, you will make a lot of mistakes. Even if you become like a mature or a very like, subject matter expert, even then you can make mistakes. So I think it is very important for us to be forgiving to ourselves. But then it is also important to motivate others and inspire others constantly, and make sure like, you are able to influence other people without any like authority. You'll still be able to help them out, lead them, guide them. And I think that is very key essential piece of entire leadership journey. The other thing is, it's very important to embrace any change or innovation that you're seeing. So you need to constantly boost for innovation and creativity. You need to constantly boost your team and people around you and yourself to take on the next challenge. And that is very important, having the right attitude and mind shift, right, at the right time. If you're seeing an inflection point, it's very important to upskill yourself and learn something new if your job requires you to do that in order to move forward. Now, adapting changes to business environments is another thing. Like, for example, a lot of people have been complaining that AI, they're scared that AI will cause them to lose their jobs. And I understand that. Like, I'll not lie. Like, when I started, my major in masters was computer science and engineering, but I did my major in computer networks. Like, my minor was in computer networks. So AI was still new thing for me. But when I got thrown away with a problem to solve, like, using AI, I started learning the basics. I took extra courses, I upskilled myself, and I became part of the AI workforce. So I think like that kind of open attitude to learn new things is very important. Now, another key pillar, which I think most women do not really work on or do not think it's important enough, is building very strong relationship and networking within organization. We women, like, are very like, I would say we are very social creatures in general. We love like socializing, helping each other, having that motherhood, sisterhood. Like, there is a reason that's called, because that's how, like, the entire human society was built, right? So establishing strong relationship, making sure that you're empowering other women, that is very essential and important. You need to, like, also not build just relationship with your women counterpart, but also your men counterpart, right? Like, it's important to know your colleagues out there. As a matter of fact, like, cross organization efforts, just connect with other people and take it as a learning and see like what experience it can bring you. Now, moving on to the next one. What leadership qualities should your organization foster? So I think it's up to organizations as well to foster these right qualities in their women workforce, in order to make sure that they are ready and prepared for the next thing out there. So I think listening is very essential, and they should foster passion for doing anything that they are like, they are into. And it means, even if, say, like, you're not into AI right now, or you're not into venture capital right now, but if you're passionate about it, your mentor and your manager and your boss should be able to, like, guide you to, like, take on to your next role, or like prepare you for your next milestone and foster your passion. So that is very important. As a matter of fact, like, it's very essential to leverage your empathy and, like, your self-awareness, self-regulation, to build these strong relationship with your, like, different team members, and help, like, others as well in this journey, because everybody is a little bit insecure after all. Then strategic thinking, I feel, is another key pillar. It's very important to, for any given situation, it is very important to have a very pragmatic thinking, right? You may be thrown like a big block of project, which might seem like a really impossible task to take on in the timeline that you've been given. But if you think very calmly, patiently, and you think pragmatically about it, break it down into smaller problems, and then try tackling smaller problems, and then integrate those smaller solution into a bigger solution, you will be able to reach out to your ultimate destination in a given timeline. So I think it's very essential for that. And it is also very important to ask the right questions. If you're given a task and you're not clear, like, what the task requires you to do, what are the goals of the task, what is the outcome that is expected, please do not leave the room without, like, getting the answers to all your questions. Because, like, in that moment, maybe you will have some questions that you think that are dumb, but later on, like, if you do not figure it out, you will be forever blocked on those questions, right? So it's better to get clarity in advance and not worry or think about what other people would think if you're asking us, if you are asking a question that you think is like not smart enough. But I don't think any question is honestly dumb. All questions come from a place of inquisitivity and a place of, like, an attitude for learning, and I think that should be encouraged. So asking questions is a great thing. Maybe, like, you can ask questions later on, or like, but I think that should be fostered by the organizations, that, hey, like, why are we doing this, or what does this, what is the expected outcome for this particular project. Asking questions is good, so organizations need to foster that as well. Then it is very essential to provide women opportunities to receive guidance and support from experienced leaders and help navigate their career paths and overcome obstacles as well. And also, it's very essential to recognize when there are right accomplishments. It's very essential for people to reward women, so that they start, like, building more and more confidence. And it's very important to foster enthusiasm, respect, and honesty. You should feel like you have a seat at the table in the end. It's very important that women are heard, women are given a chance and a break to speak up when they are trying to speak. Nobody should prompt them or cut them in between. Their opinion should be listened with utmost patience, I guess. So what are other leadership qualities we should, like, foster in an organization? So essentially, like, it's very important to invest in women's personal and professional development through training as well, educational programs, workshops. Most of the companies, like, they do have some sort of, like, tuition assistance. They have, like, a lot of, like, community courses that you should, like, you should be always be ready to take. You'll meet a lot of vibrant people out there, so keep those options open and always explore these options. If there is a tuition assistance, which I know, like, Microsoft offers, Apple offers, like, are up to 15,000 at times, like, I don't know the exact number, can be confirmed, but that can be, like, used constantly for every year, like, to empower yourself and educate yourself further and learn new courses. And that could be as simple as just, like, taking pictures or photography, or, like, any creative writing or business writing, right? Like, that helps you foster your passion in general. It's also very important to foster the culture of inclusivity, where women leaders can create an environment that values diverse perspective and encourages collaboration. So people will come with different backgrounds and they'll have, like, different way of thinking, and that's what empowers a very diverse background, because there will be a lot of different opinions, and then at the same time finding cohesiveness in those opinions and aligning the goals of different people with diverse background. That is what the key strength of these diverse organization holds. Also, it is very important to constantly, like, develop ability to adapt any new changes or inflection points. Like, nowadays AI is trending and will trend forever. It's not just a temporary fad or, like, a bubble, like a lot of people think. So I think it is very essential for our organizations to invest in upskilling their female employees and male employees as well. So how can you prepare yourself for leadership in a way that you can get started in your high school? What are some of the things that you can think of, and how you can be more ready to take up these challenges in the future? So first of all, it's very important to develop a growth mindset. If there is any challenge, embrace it. If there is any failure, learn from it. If there are setbacks, then see those as opportunities for your growth. This mindset that you build right now at a very young age, it will build you to be more resilient, and it will help you adapt changes and, like, different circumstances in life that, like, these leadership roles will offer you. So you will be better prepared for that. So it's good if you can start embracing that kind of open thinking right from the beginning. Then it is very important to practice public speaking and presentation skills. That will always help you build more and more confidence. So, kudos to Sneha for organizing this. I think this will help a lot of women speak up and share their opinions, thoughts, and experience with other women out there. Now, I feel it's also important to be more involved in leadership roles early. You can take up such challenges by being part of student governance, or like some sort of book clubs, or any community organizations. And you can gain a lot of experience through like these volunteering board roles or decision making roles early on. You don't have to be in the corporate to take on these kind of experiences. Then obviously you should always strive to gain these diverse experiences and seek different opportunities through various activities and clubs and internship to broaden your knowledge. Do not hesitate to contact any of the leaders out there that you think, ask them out for a coffee and say, hey, I want to do this. Asking for a coffee is encouraged. Do that. Reach out to more women leaders, ask them for a coffee, ask them for feedback, give them concrete questions. But of course, do not be disrespectful. Make sure that you use the time very well. Make very pinpointed question. Do not ask what can be googled very easily and you can find answers on Google. That is not a useful information, right? To ask and use up somebody's time. Rather ask questions which you cannot find in Google answered. So in conclusion, I would like to bring in some positives as well. So female managers are known to be more supportive of their teams, with 31% providing emotional support compared to 19% of their male managers. Women are able to make much bolder and wiser decisions as leaders, creating a more cooperative team environment. Then women surpassed males in 11 of 12 of major emotional intelligence characteristics, including emotional self-awareness, empathy, conflict management, flexibility, teamwork, which are essential skills for becoming a good leader at work. So yeah, I wanted to leave this on a positive note. Thank you so much. And if anybody has a question, I'm open to answer.
Well, thank you, Hina. Thank you for your presentation on how to be ready for leaderships. I definitely learned a lot from this, and I really loved your advice. But unfortunately, I don't think we can go to questions. I think we'll have to move directly to the panel for that.